the American people are waking up. And I find it fascinating that this American Action Network that has been put together by these billionaires, that we shared all this information with you yesterday. I won't go through a whole long repeat of it. But the bottom line, and in fact, the question that I would ask you, because I'm trying to figure this out. I have talked with. I've lived in Washington D.C. about 6 months now, a little longer than that, since September, whatever that is, and I've gotten to know a couple of members of Congress. I've known a couple of members of Congress for years, actually, and gotten to know a couple more, and gotten to know a couple of Democratic strategists. Some of them because they come on our TV show at night. Some of them just friends of friends, dinner parties, whatever. There is no coherent messaging strategy on the left. I can just tell you that as a fact. I'm here in the middle of it. You've got organizations that don't coordinate their efforts. You've got politicians who don't coordinate their efforts. You've got a Democratic caucus that disagrees with itself. You've got the blue dogs, the yellow dogs, the progressives, and they all think each other's crazy. This is within the Democratic Party. Now, why would it be that the Republicans, starting with Lewis Powell's memo in 1974 to his best friend and next-door neighbor, the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and if you're not familiar with this, again, we've done entire shows on it. I'm not going to repeat it, but you could just Google Powell memo, and it should pop right up. Lewis Powell was a lawyer and conservative activist at the time, and he wrote this memo fairly short, given everything that's in it. I think it's maybe 20, 30 pages, basically saying conservatives need to get their act together. We're getting our butts handed to us. Keep in mind, this was 74. Nixon was president, and maybe it was 72 or maybe it was 70, whatever year it was. It was during the Nixon presidency, and Powell writes this memo to the head of the Chamber of Commerce saying, you guys have done a great job for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, going out there and speaking on behalf of American business, but it's got to go a lot farther than that. These are my words, not his. I'm paraphrasing. What it has to do is we have to take over and infiltrate and change the stories of our colleges, so that our students grow up to be good little conservative robots. Again, my language, not his, but this is the essence of it. Of our high schools, so that our textbooks are no longer teaching socialism. Of our court system, the third branch of government, which has, as a result of an 1803 decision by the Supreme Court that made President Jefferson at the time go nuts, but he ultimately found he couldn't do anything about it. The judiciary system, which now has more power than either of the other two systems. I mean, keep in mind, this is one of those interesting areas where Phyllis Schlafly and I can have a conversation and agree. She thinks it's outrageous, too. Now, she thinks it's outrageous because the court legalized abortion in 74 with Roe v. Wade. I think it's outrageous because the court has come up with this doctrine of corporate personhood starting in 1817 with the Dartmouth case, reaching its 19th century pinnacle in 1886 with the Citizens United case, and then most recently last year with the Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad case, and then over the last 30 years, Buckley versus Vallejo, First National Bank versus Bilotti, and now Citizens United. And what the Supreme Court has said is, even though no legislature ever said corporations are people and should have rights, in fact, if anything, every legislature of every state has said the opposite at more than one point in time in the history of this country. Every single one. And none has said that this is the case, ever. And no president has ever said this is the case. In fact, Presidents James Madison said the growing power of corporations will continually be a threat to democracy. Thomas Jefferson talked about the danger of aggregated wealth and how it should be taxed so it couldn't accumulate to the point where it could challenge the government. In the 1880s, Grover Cleveland, the president, in his address to the nation the year after the Santa Clara case, said that this growing corporate power is like an iron heel on the boot of the average American's neck. In his State of the Union address, you can read it. Look at it online. It's right there. Dwight Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex. Teddy Roosevelt, back in 1907, made it illegal, made it a felony for companies to give money to politicians for political office. So we have this long history of presidents and legislatures, the two out of the three branches of government, saying corporations aren't people and they've got too much power. And, of course, that's the absolute consensus of we the people. We've known this for decades. The most famous study was the one done by Businessweek magazine maybe 10 years ago or so, where they asked people, but even more recent ones, corporations have too much power. But the courts gave it to them. So Lewis Powell said to his best friend, the next door neighbor, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, he said, you have to also figure out a way to infiltrate the courts. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the business community, has to infiltrate the courts. And thus was born the Federalist Society, which now members of the Federalist Society now represent more than half of all people on courts, on federal and state appeals courts, and all the federal courts and the state appeals courts in the United States. And Powell, 3 months after he wrote this memo, was put on the Supreme Court by Richard Nixon. So the question, why do Republicans have to organize like crazy and lie to get their message out, and Democrats think they can just tell the truth?